Hi guys, so I'm going to go ahead and do a video today on repurposing a BOSE subwoofer. And what I've got here, I've got the BOSE Acoustimass 6 Series 2 subwoofer. I did some Craigslist shopping the other day and I found this bad boy for 20 bucks. So without all of the stuff that hooks into it, the satellites and all that stuff, this thing is basically not worth a whole lot. And it's not a bad subwoofer. They make decent stuff. It's just that, what do you do with this thing after it's been a little beat up and it's got some damage, and nobody loves this anymore, but we're gonna try and give it some love. So what I wanna do is I wanna repurpose this thing. I'm gonna take the skin off and try and redo that. I've never done that before, so that'll be something new for me to do. We're gonna take this thing apart back here. We're gonna take the electronics out of it so that we just have a raw subwoofer here. And then I went to one of my favorite places, Parts Express, and I got myself a 2.1 channel amplifier. So let's go ahead and open all this stuff up, get it ready to go, take a look inside this guy, see what it looks like inside, and we'll get ready to see if we can properly repurpose this thing and make it into something cool. Okay, so let's get at this thing here. We're gonna take these little screws off and see what's inside here. See what Mr. BOSE made this thing out of. There we go. Pop this guy open and see what we see. Looks like a circuit board in there. Got a couple of plugs. Take those off. All right. Well, this is an unpowered unit, so all of this gets its power off of whatever signal the speakers are sending it. So inside here we have one visible woofer, and then there's a port inside here for the sound chamber, and these appear to be dual voice coil. This woofer is a dual voice coil because there's a set of pins on one side and then there's a set of pins on the other side. That's why we got 4 wires here. So this is likely a 2-speaker system, and this is probably the same thing. We'll have to do a little research on that and figure out what the wires do, which ones do which. And we do have a positive and negative indication on there, so that's good. All right, so now we know what we got to deal with. Okay, so now that we got this opened up, we know what's inside the hole. Let's go ahead and unbox our Dayton Audio Parts Express 2.1 channel Class D plate amplifier. Now I bought this because this was made to go on a subwoofer kit. So what we got inside here is, I guess everybody on YouTube does that, so we'll get rid of the instructions. We've got a power cord. And then here's the money right here, the plate amplifier. So, so what we got here from Parts Express is this plate amplifier. It's got 2 times 22 watts output for satellite speakers or for desktop speakers. And it's got, the 0.1 is the woofer output, so it actually has 2 sets of amplifiers on here. It'll power the speakers, and internally, like I said, this is made to go on the back of a subwoofer kit box. So this is the output for the subwoofer, and these are the outputs for the 2 left and right channel speakers that we're going to hook up on my desk later on when we get this all done. And it's got inputs for either RCA or mini jack, 3.5 millimeter mini jack. It's got on-off auto switches to it, bass boost, volume for the satellite speakers, subwoofer volume, and it's got the sub frequency, which is great because this way, if we're using small speakers, we can use this frequency cutoff to adjust where the sub comes in, and it will automatically take care of the crossover for me. So I'm looking forward to that. It's a nice little unit, and it was 65 bucks, so pretty cheap. Definitely for basically, well, 65 plus the $20 I spent on our subwoofer, 85 bucks, not bad for what might be a really good subwoofer. So let's go ahead and make sure this thing is going to fit. Let's take a look at this. So looking at the hole that's already in the subwoofer, we're going to have to make it a tiny bit wider and certainly longer. But, I mean, looking at this on the back here, I think this is going to look pretty darn cool. So let's take a look. What do you think? That'll be pretty nice. So, all right, well, let's get to work on taking this thing apart. See if we can make this hole bigger. All right, so because the front of this BOSE is in actually pretty good shape, I'm going to go ahead and mask this off with some masking tape, so that when we're working on this, it'll protect the front a little bit. I don't want to have to do any more work than I have to on this thing. It looks like just the sides and the bottom are peeling off, and I've got some new melamine that we're going to put on it, so we'll come back to that in a little bit. But I'm going to go ahead and mask this off and see if we can't protect the front of this thing a little bit, which will make less work for us down the road. So peel this stuff off onto here, and we'll just trim it up when we're all done. All right, come back to this in just a minute. Okay, so I've got the front all masked off, so that's protected as best we can. I'm not expecting miracles from it. But the next thing I want to do is I want to try and get some of this old melamine off this cabinet, because it's just peeling off anyway. It's just going to get worse. If the melamine doesn't work out, the stuff that I bought, I'm just going to paint this thing black with just paint. So again, it's going to be under my desk, repurposing a $20 subwoofer. So not expecting great miracles out of this. So it looks like they wrapped this on 3 sides with this stuff. So I think we can just kind of get at it here and peel it off. The glue is so old on this, it should just, just come at it like this. So we'll come back to this when it's all peeled off, because this is going to take a couple minutes. Okay, so we got all the melamine off. The box is now just plain wood, except for the front that's masked. Let's get these little feet off here. Let's see if we can get these guys off easily. And we'll try and pop these guys out. And it looks like they're just stuck in there, so they come right out. I want to use those later. So the next thing we're going to do, again, I don't want to get a bunch of dust and sawdust and stuff down inside the box, so we're just going to take a piece of plastic from a plastic bag. We're going to stick that down inside here and try and keep the sawdust from getting all over our stuff. Be a little easier to clean up that way. So there's that. All right. So remember those instructions that I threw away? Well, we need to know what size hole to cut this out at. And it just happens to say in the specifications that the required opening for this is 9 1/4 by 4 5/8. So guess what? The opening is exactly 4 1/2 inches. So it's 1/8 of an inch too small. And then we got to go out to 9 1/2. So we'll do some quick measurements here, make some lines, and then we'll get to cutting this thing. Okay? Okay, so let's do our measurements now. We'll draw a line across here at 9 1/4. And we're going to come off of this just a little bit wider. And I'm probably going to end up enlarging that hole because it's probably not going to fit just right unless we go a little bigger. So, but I think maybe what we'll do is time lapse this, And then you'll be able to watch the whole thing, and you won't have to listen to me for the whole thing. So let's go ahead and set some time lapse up, and we'll get this whole cut out. Okay, so used the Dremel tool for part of it, got a good score on it, so it's a nice clean cut. I ended up having to use a saw because the Dremel didn't go deep enough, plus it was making a lot of smoke, as you could see. And then I went ahead and finished it off with just a sanding wheel on the Dremel, just to kind of give it a little bit cleaner edge. It's not perfect, but nobody's ever going to see it. It's going to get covered up with the subwoofer. So I'm going to get a vacuum cleaner and clean this up a little bit and get the plastic out, and then we can test fit it and see if we need to cut any more. Maybe I should test fit it first. Let's test fit it real quick. Test fit complete. She fits. All right, we'll clean this up. Okay, we're to the point now where we need to sand the outside of the box, get it as smooth as possible, cleaned up, and then we're going to put the melamine on it. And I've never done the melamine before, so I have no idea whether it's going to work. Like I said, if that doesn't work, we'll fall back to paint. So I've got my sander ready to go. I've got 120 grit on here first, and then 220 after that. That should be sufficient to get this smooth enough. And then we'll get Mom's iron fired up and get ready to put the melamine on here and see how that works out. So I guess let's get sanding. Okay, so now let's go take some alcohol, and we're going to just get the rest of the dust off this, get the best adhesion we can. I'm not using a ton, I'm just getting the dust off. This melamine stuff is likely going to stick really hardcore. It's got a ton of glue on the back of it. So it should be pretty good to go with this. Again, we're not looking for miracles. We just want to get it cleaned up a bit. All right. Cap that up. Out of the way. All right. Melamine. How do we do melamine? So I've got some pieces of this called Bandit melamine or Bandit veneer facing, and I've cut it oversized so I can trim it out, and I've got enough pieces to do top, bottom, back, and each side here, as you can see. So I think what we'll do is we'll start with maybe the bottom. We'll do the bottom and then trim it up, and then we'll do the two sides, and then we'll put the top on last. So this would be the bottom here. So we'll take this, and since I got a straight edge on here already, I think we're going to try and use that. All right. So do like that, and then out here like that. All right, well, here goes nothing. Parchment paper. Just put parchment paper down before you put the iron on it. All right. So my iron has been warming up for about 10-15 minutes, and it's set for cotton, which is what they recommend. It's about 400 degrees, and it's hot. I mean, if I touch this, it's really, really, really hot. I have no idea how long to burnish it on, but we're going to find out here in just a second, aren't we? It's really hot, like burning my fingers hot. All right, so then we take a roller. Okay, so I'm learning that working with melamine sucks. If you've never done this before, there's a bit of a learning curve. So we stopped the camera and learned a little bit, and then I don't know, I suppose it's okay. You run this little cutter along the edge and it's supposed to trim it right off, but it doesn't get it like perfectly flush, which is a problem because the next piece is going to go on. It's going to hit this little lip right here. So we're taking a razor blade and we're just going to do our best to try and trim this up. Which is really a pain. This is certainly DIY. May end up on the editing floor. So we'll do our best though, try and make it look cool. Like I said, it's going under my desk. If it's not absolutely perfect, I'll live with it. All right. Actually, I think that's all right. How's my first one look? A little rough? Maybe not too awful bad. All right, let's move on to the next one. Again, I'm going to use the factory edge here for my starting point. Get my parchment up here. And here we go. Sometimes you got to go back and heat up a spot that maybe didn't burnish down as well as you think it might have. Like on this edge right here. It seems to be usually right on the edges where it looks like it's coming up again, or moving. We'll just hit it again. Pretty good. This is what we found is you need to trim this really close or the little edge trimmer thing doesn't work well. can to start with. And then we'll use this edge trimmer here to finish it up. So just sanding the edges with a little fine sandpaper. This is 320 grit, and I'm just kind of cleaning it up a little bit. Like I said, it's not terrible. It's not great. I mean, if you look at it closely, it's not really all that great, but I don't know, it's better than it was. Let's just say that. Let's see if I can get this opened up somehow. One word about this stuff, when you're working with it to take it out of the package and cut it, be real careful with it because it is super brittle. I mean, you look at this stuff, it just cracks really easily. And the stuff that I bought actually was damaged. There was probably 20% of it was unusable because somebody had punched it or hit it or something and cracked it through the box, or maybe it was returned, somebody got it and didn't like it and didn't put it away right. But anyway, it was damaged and a lot of it wasn't usable. So I had more than enough to do what I needed to do. It was only like $25, so I got enough to do probably another one of these cabinets if I wanted to. So I'm not going to fuss over it, but anyway, word of the wise, just be careful with it. So, I think we're to the point now where we can put some electronics in this thing, which is the part I've been waiting for. So let me clean up a little bit, we'll come back, we'll put some electronics in this thing. Okay, so what we've got inside here, and why there's so many, there's only 2 speakers in here, 2 subwoofers. But there are 8 wires here. So what we have is 2 speakers that are both what's called dual voice coils. So because each one has 2 coils, what it does is it allows you to change the ohms, and by lowering the ohms you can get more power for less ohms. It's a whole lot of electrical theory and all that stuff. Not going to get into that. Look it up, how to wire dual voice coils. A lot of car audio people deal with that. So I did some research, I made some notes, and we're going to wire this up that way. I will put a diagram up on the screen when I get to post-production doing my editing, so you can see exactly what I'm doing. But what we're going to do is we're going to pair these up. So we're pairing the negatives and the positives together. Okay, so what I've got going on here is I have bound together on speaker number 1, which is the visible one, I've bound together the 2 positives and the 2 negatives into a set of wires here with red and black for positive and negative. And then on speaker number 2, which you can't see, it's inside there, I've bound together again the 2 negatives and the 2 positives, again, black and red. So the gray and the black are negatives on the speaker number 2, and the red and the white are positives on speaker number 2. The yellow and the orange are positive on speaker number 1, and the brown and the green are negatives on speaker number 1. So what we're going to do is we're going to put these 2 blacks together here, and we're going to bind this into a little connector, just like that. And we will crimp that. That ought to do it. Yep, that's good. And then we'll do the red here. All right, get those in there nice and good. Once again, crimp them. All right, feels good. Okay, so now I think we're ready to put this thing together. So this is already wired for a subwoofer. So all I got to do in this case now is put the black to the black, the red to the red. There we go. So let's check our fit. Let's see the front, that's the top. All right. So let's put some music to it and see what happens. All right, so power's on. I got the volume here. The satellite volume is down, the subwoofer volume is down. Power's on. We'll go ahead and start the music. Putting out a lot of sound. A lot of sound. There's the woofer by itself. Rumbly. Well, I think it worked. So yeah, cool. It's more than a $20 woofer now. It's more like a $100 subwoofer, but I think overall it turned out pretty good. So let me get this buttoned up and we'll take a couple of final shots of it and we'll call this job well done.